Ladies and gentlemen, nationalism is back, louder, sharper and more influential than it's been in decades. But is nationalism inherently racist, or can a nation defend its identity without defining itself by race? To answer that, we're going to examine a real-world case, Reform UK, a party that claims to stand for national sovereignty but has repeatedly struggled with accusations of racism within its ranks. And we look at Reform as a nationalist party in particular because, like all Western nationalist parties, they have allegedly used othering as a means to promote their idea of nationalism. So let's look at some rough definitions. Nationalism is the belief that a nation, a political community, should have sovereignty and self-determination, particularly at the detriment or exclusion of other nations. Now, racism, on the other hand, is the belief that humanity is divided into biologically distinct races with inherent differences in characteristics, qualities, or abilities, so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another. These are not the same things, obviously. Nationalism answers a political question, who governs. Racism answers a biological one, who is superior. Now that's out of the way, let's get back to Reform. Reform UK presents itself as a civic nationalist party. Its core messages focus on border control, national sovereignty, political accountability, restricting immigration, prioritising citizens and emphasising national decision making, and these can all exist within a non-racist framework. But political movements are judged not by policy documents, they're judged by who they attract, what they tolerate, and how they respond when these lines are crossed. And this is where Reform UK runs into some serious trouble. Multiple Reform candidates have been exposed for racist, Islamophobic and anti-Semitic social media posts, including, but not limited to, slurs, conspiracy theories and praise for extremist ideas. Some candidates have shared content portraying Muslims as an inherent threat to Britain. Others promoted anti-Semitic narratives about global control or denied historical atrocities. One candidate sparked outrage after defending ownership of a gollywog, a symbol widely understood as a racist caricature. Then there's an issue with a member of the parliamentary party openly saying that seeing people of colour in advertisements actually drives her mad.
I think Stuart's absolutely right. Drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people, full of, people that basically are anything.
What's wrong with that, Sarah?
White.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it doesn't reflect our society, and I feel that your average white person, average white family is, like, I agree with you, Stuart, not represented.
And Nigel Farage's own travails are being widely documented at the moment.
The question is, did you ever racially abuse fellow pupils in school?
No,
you've caveated it with a hurtful way.
Not with intent.
What do you mean not with intent? I don't understand what you mean by not with intent. What does that mean?
You wouldn't do.
But what does that mean?
No.
No what?
No. I have never directly really tried to go and hurt anybody.
With the number of former pupils at Dulwich College accusing him of racism now totalling 34. These aren't just isolated comments dug up from decades ago. Many were recent, public and totally unapologetic, raising questions about whether this was accidental or symptomatic. In response, Nigel Farage has repeatedly argued that these incidents were the result of poor vetting, blaming external firms and saying candidates were removed once exposed. He also said that the comments made about people of colour in ads as being wrong and ugly, but didn't go as far as to sanction his MP further and stop short of calling her comments racist. But this leads critics to point out a deeper problem. When nationalist rhetoric focuses heavily on threat, invasion and cultural identity, it risks attracting people who already think in racial terms. One of the most damaging revelations was that a candidate accused of extremist sympathies had been involved in vetting others, suggesting the problem wasn't just oversight but culture. So, this brings us back to the core question. Civic nationalism draws a line between citizens and non-citizens, a political boundary. Racist nationalism redraws that line as biological or cultural destiny. It defines who can never belong no matter what. Reform UK's official language often stays on the civic side of that line, but The behaviour of its candidates shows how easily nationalism can slide into racial exclusion when leadership fails to enforce clear boundaries. So, can nationalism exist without racism? Well, yes, in theory, but the Reform UK case shows how fragile that distinction is in practice. Without disciplined leadership, firm red lines, and genuine inclusivity, nationalism doesn't just risk being misunderstood, it risks becoming the very thing it claims not to be. Anyway, over to you guys. Is it possible to have nationalism without racism, and if so, where are we seeing that? More so, if reform didn't have these issues regarding racism, would it be a more palatable political proposition? Leave your comments below, and as always, thank you for taking the time to watch. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you all in the comments. Out.